See, the building of a new nation begins with the woman, because the mother is the first teacher of the child. The message that she gives that child, the child gives to the world, so we have to be very careful.
I know many people, especially women, will not find this palatable, but the truth of the matter is that whether we like it or not, the mothers are the first teachers of children, and very often they are the ones that provide the foundation in terms of the personality that the child will develop, because they tend to generally spend more time with the children. So quite often you will see that because of the contact they have with the kids and the fact that they actually biologically, physically are the ones that carry the child, so there's a strong bond in the early years, especially between the mother and both male and female children. You can therefore understand why generally what happens is that children are attached to their mothers more than they are to their fathers. And also, if you look at the nature of the man tends to be the one that brings the aspect of discipline, kind of trying to mold the child into shape, and so tends to be more of the stricter personality in the relationship, quite often, generally. So because of that, we find that women have a lot of influence and get emotional connection with the children earlier in life. As a result, what happens is that when that child grows up, more often than not, there's more of a lasting impact in the life of the child emotionally from the mother than from the father. The attachment is greater, but over time, as they grow up, depending on the gender of the child, and sometimes a lot of other factors, there can be a strong bond formed with the father as well. It happens, but generally women have a lot of influence over their kids. So when we see a man who is beating a woman who is his spouse, I think one of the questions we need to begin to ask ourselves in today's world, 2022, is what kind of work did the father and mother, especially the mother, do to help that male child, that man, become the man that we are seeing him to be? What did she put into him to help him understand the way to handle or treat a woman? You see, people keep talking men. There was a post I saw on Facebook. One woman posted men 3 times, and the owner of the post was saying, she said, how many times did I call you and all that. The point is, you are saying men. These men were raised by women. Agreed, some of them had fathers, but I've said it, and if you check, if we're being honest with ourselves, we know it's true. Women have more of an influence on their kids than men, especially when they are growing up, the younger years. And you will see that many times the children are so attached to the mother that if the children were asked to choose between going with the mother and going with the father when there's an issue of separation, children tend to go with their mothers. Isn't it the case? And then what does society say? Even in the law, even in courts, what happens? Mother is a primary caregiver. More often than not, the mother is favored. So when we see a man beating a woman, the truth of the matter is that the mother has much more opportunity to mold that male child than the father, because he will tend to come in and the openings where maybe the child is not listening to the mother or respecting the mother or whatever, and then you can play his role. Of course, as an active male parent, you can even do more than that, but I'm just saying that generally the children will lean towards the mother. So whatever we're seeing in the man, whether we like it or not, the mother has a major responsibility to explain why the man is like that. Okay, now what could possibly lead a mother to produce a man who beats a woman, knowing that the mother is a woman? It's very simple. What are the values the mother herself upholds? Is the mother herself a physically abusive person? It doesn't matter whether she's abusive towards men or women. If the mother is a physically abusive person, or a verbally or emotionally or psychologically abusive person, and she continues to display that disposition or that habit or behavior in the presence of her children, whether at the child himself or herself or at other people around her and her children, it is possible for that child to learn to be like that. So it can be a learned behavior. Abusive behavior is often something that is learned from what a person sees around. Sometimes, of course, it's a reflex reaction triggered by probably prolonged periods of exposure to provocation of some sort. But more often than not, it is something that is seen and learned. If you are used to seeing somebody get slapped, people slapping other people, you may think it's normal to slap people. Isn't that why Nigeria is such a society where somebody hits your car, next thing you know, bow, the owner of the car has come out and slapped the other person? Try that in Cotonou or in Benin Republic. You get into jail straight away because it's not tolerated. It's not accepted as normal behavior. So what I'm saying in essence is this: the mothers have a greater opportunity to mold their male children and their female children. The question is, how well did they do that job? First consideration is, what behavior do you exhibit in front of the child? It doesn't matter what you say, it's what you do. And we've read so many times that children learn by watching you. It's not what you're telling them, they watch you and they learn from what you are doing. So if you as a mother are somebody that is constantly engaged in inflicting abuse and violence on others, your child is very, very, very likely to learn to be that way. The other thing is, if you're somebody that is short-tempered, intolerant, impatient, unwilling to explore other ways aside from conflict to address issues you have with other people, your child may develop the same disposition. In other words, rather than think, let's talk about this, let's sit down as two mature adults and let's resolve this issue we have ourselves, you instantly become somebody that becomes irritable. You begin to insult the person, calling the person of man of name, making provocative comments and all that. You cannot do more than a dead rat. I will do this, I will do that, and even pour water in the person's face, pour salt in the person's eyes. You do things like that, punch him in the face, whatever. You do things to provoke others, and you look for ways to aggravate, get people aggravated, so that maybe you can then say, hey, you see, yes, you see, I knew you are the one. You see, you're trying to beat me now. When you do that in front of a child, the child can learn to be like that. That's another thing. So again, it still ties into the behavior thing, but on another level. Now, one more thing that I would like to point out is this. Okay, you are angry. How long does it take? You're upset. How long does it take for you to be calm, for you to accept to calm down, or for you to accept that you don't need to go that extreme route you are going? What does it take people to correct you? Can you even listen? Do you even accept to listen? People are telling you, calm down, it's okay, don't do anymore, but you are still pushing. If that child sees that you always do that, where you never accept for someone to calm you down, and until you've done what you wish to do, you do not stop, that child could also learn to be like that. You see, so it's not just about you being like that, but do you accept to be stopped or to be pressured or appealed to stop? Or are you somebody that must do it to the end first, achieve that your violent aim before you then withdraw? If you are like that, then it means if the child exhibits that behavior, it's most likely learn from you. You see, we have to build up children, and if we do not teach children to self-manage, they will self-destruct. Because when they watch us every day or every week or every month self-destructing, because that's what we're doing. Every time you allow violence to take you over, you allow your anger to override your reasoning, you are self-destructing, because you are basically tearing apart the relationship you have with that person. Every time you do it, you kill the relationship you are having, because the person will never view you in the same way again, whether the person is a man or a woman, husband or wife. When you do that, when you let go of yourself and you let go of your emotion and attack and cause pain, whether verbal, psychological, emotional or physical, anytime you do that, you are effectively self-destructing. So if the child has learned to be like that, then the child will also go out and feel like it's okay to behave in that way. We need to challenge ourselves to help our children develop the ability to self-manage. That means we have to be conscious in the way we behave around them, not just what we lecture them on. Don't tell them to read the Bible and then next one they see you at any opportunity. When you are just angry, anything your hand touches, you use, boom. Anything your mouth or your brain tells you to say, you say. Then 1 week later, you are in church and you are praying, and the person will be looking at the child, will be looking at you and thinking to myself, okay, so it's okay to be like this now. I can do all these things to my own spouse. And then I come to church and pray and God will forgive me. So the child sees it as normal, accepts that there's nothing wrong with it, and then sees there for no reason not to do it to somebody else if she feels upset. I have had people, like my ex-partner, tell me, why did you make angry, in response to the question about why she poured hot water on me, or why she used a weapon on me, even though I didn't hit her. I keep saying this, and I want to point it out again in this recording. One thing you can also teach a child is how to tell lies after they've been abusive, to cover themselves. So after she had injured me, hit me, or poured hot water on me, she would then tell me that she was going to get people that would serve as witnesses to say that she never did it, that I did it to myself. That has happened to me countless times. Now, she was doing it in front of the kids. I assure you, today, those kids have internalized that. They will use it when it's necessary to. It's an act of self-preservation. You know you've done wrong. You know you've lost control again. You've lost your reasoning, and you've acted without thinking of consequences. Now the injury has been inflicted on the person. There's blood everywhere. Now you're thinking, how do I get out of this? So you have to lie. Oh, I'm a woman. So you see, he was beating me. That's why I was defending myself. That's another thing they do. So you instantly look for a lie to tell. Your child sees you tell that lie. What do you think that child is going to do to the husband? What do you think that child is going to do to the wife? Because this is somebody that has both male and female children. You see, men and women can be equally abusive. It's no difference, just the way they choose to be abusive. Women are more verbal. Men are psychological and manipulative. Men are more physical. So if the children live with a mother or a father who is like that, and they see that when he has done it, then he now lies, they will also learn to lie. So the point I'm trying to make in essence is this: it is the parents that raise the person that comes out to become abusive to a spouse. So it is what they pass on to that child as primary values that child will take into the world and work with. If they've always demonstrated to the child that violence is not an option, it's not negotiable, that child will realize that, will think of that most times, and know that if and when they hear that he was violent with his spouse, he's going to have to explain himself to them, and they will not support him. But when the child knows that the mother herself inflicted massive volumes of abuse on their father, and they helped their mother to cover it up, what do you think they will expect their mother to do when they abuse their own spouse? They know that their mother will have to cover for them, because it's a scratch my back and scratch your back relationship. Believe me, some men that you are seeing abusing their wives, go and check. Their mothers were probably abusive, or their fathers were probably abusive. There's no gender thing. A human being can be abusive, and if the parent is supportive, or how do I put it now, or condones such behavior, and the child knows it, the child will do it knowing that he can get support from the parent. And that's the point I wanted to make in this podcast, that the men we are seeing that are abusive to women, even in terms of their ability to manage, I said self-manage, I'm using that expression, manage your emotion. People say there's no provocation. Yes, I agree with you. One man called in on YourView, Mariah's show, and made the point that there are different kinds of men, and was saying that what if you have a weak men are the one that then, when provocation happens to a point they cannot cope with, they resort to violence. I agree with him. It's the weak men. We have to understand there are different kinds of parents, and there are different kinds of home, there are different kinds of upbringing happening. So you will expect that you cannot expect that everybody will be like you, raise their child like you have raised your child, to have self-control, to be able to exercise restraint. Some people do not. They do not teach their child to be like that, because they themselves, they don't live a lifestyle in which they exercise restraint. They go for it the minute they lose, they get angry. You upset them and all hell will be let loose. That child will come out with that disposition. So that child is a weak man, a weak woman. So when you are dealing with such people, you cannot expect them to behave the way other non-weak men and women will behave. And for you to expect that everybody is going to end up marrying a strong man is ridiculous. It's being simplistic. You are being naive. There are always going to be weak men and weak women. The problem is that if you don't teach your own child not to provoke people, if you know the person is strong and you're provoking him, one day even a strong man will crack. So the point is, don't even go around provoking people. But then at least if you're provoking a person and the person is strong, God, you are lucky, thank your stars. But if you happen to go and provoke someone and the person is one of those weak ones that did not get the kind of upbringing at home to build himself up to be able to exercise restraint, then whatever happens, you have to bear the consequences. And what I'm saying therefore is that the parents can do a good job of bringing their child up to know that he must exercise restraint no matter what as a man. But they must train him on how to also treat himself psychologically, coping mechanisms, and also where to get help. They must provide him an outlet so that he doesn't bottle it up, and then if he's exercising restraint, he knows he's never going to hit the woman. But then he thinks to himself, I'm suffering too much, I can't take this anymore, and decides to commit suicide. That is not good either. Because whatever he has experienced that making him turn to suicide is something that would have also been avoided. So we have to also help them to help themselves. So there's many layers to this thing. This simplistic argument of you can't do this, you can't do this. No, there's nothing like you can't. A human being is comprised of by so many layers of emotions and tendencies, and we must every person has a unique combination of that. There are no two people that are identical in that way. Therefore, what we'll expect from them is literally unpredictable. It is therefore, by implication, therefore, what we need to do is to train them to know how to handle their unique dispositions. Teach them to self-manage. And it's not an easy thing to do, but one of the best ways to do it is to show them in your own life. When they remember that the person they grew up with, that was their primary influence as a parent, was never somebody that was given to rash speaking or actions, then it becomes something that influences them. They'll be thinking, when my father even was provoked, he never ever went out of his way to beat his mother and all that. So I beat my mother, so let me not do this because I know he's going to frown at it. He never did that and he always told me it was wrong. That is something I drop. But if you had a parent who was always reckless in the way they responded to whatever they felt they were facing, then he will also feel the same way because he has never experienced a need to exercise restraint, and then he will do it, and they know that the other person will not have the moral quality to tell him it was wrong because our mommy used to do it too now, daddy used to do it too now. That's the problem. I experienced a lot of that with my ex-partner. I saw my kids progressively descend into becoming violent because over a period of time I was going to report everywhere about what she was doing, and I was telling the people I was going to, I don't want these kids to learn to be like this. They're not like this now, but if they keep seeing their mom getting away with all these things, they might believe that violence is okay too. And today, that's exactly what the reality is. Of course, with some exceptions. But the truth of the matter is that I don't know what they will do when they are put in high pressure situation, when they feel threatened, or no, not even threatened, and when they feel provoked for whatever reason. What will they do? And then what will they do after they've done it? Would they own up and say they did it, or would they gaslight the person and lie and say he did it to himself, or I was not even there? Like somebody said on Mariah's show that the husband then went and caught himself, or the boyfriend went and caught himself and said, no, in fact, she was the one that was even attacking me. See my injuries. My partner did that. She would wrap a bandage around her ankles and go to, when I went to report her at the police station, she would go there and show herself and say, look, he injured me on my hand, he injured me on my leg, even though nothing of the sort ever happened. And groom the kids to tell some lies for her. I look at these things and I think people are so simplistic about this thing. You have some people that have learned from the environment they grew up how to be abusive and how to cover their tracks. And that was one person, for instance, that my ex-partner was. She did not come as a new person in it. She had been groomed to do it. The things she did to me were so well rehearsed. It was clear that it was not the first time she was doing them. And so she also knew how to groom her children. I was just lucky it wasn't all the kids that joined to do it. But if you that did it, they did enough damage. And I'm just telling you, I'm sharing this story. Some people say, a man, you should be a man. It's a lot of rubbish. As a man, one of the things you use to show your strength is your ability, your willingness to speak out about things like this that have been done to you. So I'm telling people, I'm showing my strength because I also want my sons to know that I stood my ground in spite of everything. Alright? And I still continue speaking the truth. The Yoruba say, one day, if lie runs for 20 years, one day truth will come and out, get it out of balance, get it out of the way. Truth will come and offset it. So I know that staying visible and staying audible, talking about what I have gone through, because I see that an unrepentant ex-partner telling the kids nothing she did was wrong and making the kids believe they should grow up like that, meaning that she's turning out versions of herself into society that will go and torture some other people's children. I want to make sure my kids can see that despite everything they did, I didn't shut up and I kept talking, and I still didn't do those violent things that other men would have done. So at least they have something as a reference point to say, okay, even if I'm going to do this thing, my dad never did this, despite all the things that my mother did to him. So hopefully it will help them, and it will hopefully prick their conscience. As I said, it's not all of them, but because even one of them at all is like that, that is enough for me to worry about. This is what drives me to do what I do. on the subject of domestic violence generally and domestic violence against men in particular, because men do not get listened to. Morayo really did a good job on her show. That video clip I just showed an excerpt from it. I put a link in the description. She tried to raise the point and make sure that put a balanced perspective on the issue. That okay, what about the men? The thing she was, and it was because of that man that called on the show. She was trying to bring it up, and the other woman was telling her, no, there's no way. And I say no. I think it's better for us to acknowledge that it happens and that the men may not be. You see, we don't all come formed in the same way. Some of us are not ready for it because the environment you grew up with, there was no violence at all. Nobody was hitting anybody in my family. My parents were not physically attacking one another. It was more of an emotional thing. So why would I want to hit anybody? I never hit anybody in my family. Yeah, me and my brother we had some fights, but that's it. Nobody was going around kicking, stabbing and all that. It was not something that was in my consciousness. So we don't come from that environment. Why would you then expect us to be able to cope with it? So it's something that we have to consciously prepare a child for if we want him to cope with it. Are parents doing that? No. Should we do that? Yes. That is my recommendation. Prepare your child today to deal with possible abuse, not just at home, even in the office, even on the streets. The provocation thing, it's something that can happen spontaneously. The response to provocation. Sometimes even you will be shocked at your reaction later. Wow, why did I react like that? I just hit him like that. I never thought I was capable of something. It happens. We're human beings. We do lose control, and in one instant, 1 second, you can lose control and you can do damage that may cost you your entire freedom for life. And I think the problem is that we are actually underestimating the potential that domestic violence and provocation can have to make us act out of character. The lady that was talking, they're talking about self-control. You see, we have all faced all kinds of things in life. Sometimes some people need experience to be able to change their views because they've only seen one dimension of life. I have seen multiple dimensions, and even now I still do not claim to know everything. In fact, my experiences have warned me and taught me not to be too quick to pass judgment and to be more willing to listen first of all and take all sides of an issue into consideration. I think many people who are talking about domestic violence have been one-dimensional in their thinking, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're not making progress in solving the problem. The things I've discussed in this particular podcast, I believe, are some of the most important issues we need to address. It's the roots. We have to look at the problem from the roots. The root is the home. What is the child seeing? A male child that is a man that is beating up his wife because she provoked him for whatever reason, no matter how bad the provocation was. The only reason he's gone to the point of hitting her and beating her and whatever and breaking her head is because he did not get the training on how to exercise restraint. I cannot claim that I got the training from inside my home where I was brought up by my parents. I got the training from where I went to school, where I was a martial arts enthusiast. That was where I learned about someone to self-control techniques, and then I read up a lot about it, and I remained in sports and I learned to exercise restraint under certain high pressure situations in sports too. So I trained myself to deal with pressure, psychological pressure. That is what makes you lose control. That's what makes you snap when you cannot get a hold of yourself psychologically. I think parents need to begin to find ways to help their kids through that, and if they know they cannot do it alone, they get somebody who's a professional to coach their child on that, or give their child some experiences of life that can help the child learn that. For instance, to get into high pressure situations, let them go and do paramilitary training, let them go into high stress camp condition where they go and camp in the wild, let them get exposed to some adversity in life, let them get into sports, challenge them to challenge themselves. Then when they do that, they will not be so easily triggered anymore. And then talk to them, show them also by example. This is the way to address this thing. The young men or the men that are beating their wives did not just jump down from the sky. They came through somebody's upbringing. Somebody gave them upbringing, somebody gave them nurturing, somebody trained them to adulthood and then made them the men they became.
Once you just tell any Nigerian girl say you like am, her papa go hospital, and that one go finish, credit go finish, hungry go beat her for 2 years. They had that for school, you never buy her. And once you tell them, but if you not tell them say you like them, everything they go well.
The same thing with the woman who's abusing her husband and doing it stylishly and pretending that she's not doing anything and manipulating the guy. And like Dr. Olufunmilayo said, the UK doctor, on one of his tweets which went viral, he called them relationship hoodlums, Nigerian ladies. the abusive nature, psychologically and emotionally abusive nature, even verbally abusive nature of Nigerian women. It's legendary to have a Nigerian woman as a spouse, or sorry, as a girlfriend, sorry. And you even have comedians making jokes about it, but I tell them all the time, the jokes are not funny. The jokes are not funny. They are reality. It's not that men are having to laugh it off, but they know that they are on the receiving end of massive abuse. I'm going to talk about it in the second clip, where women are grooming their daughters on how to abuse their spouses to be. And they say it's normal, it's the right of the woman. They talk a lot of nonsense. I would address that in another clip, but I think this one should be enough for now. Cheers. Alright, who's the battered man? Let me just read out what you have on your screen, because it's actually a definition given by the researcher. Okay, he and a female partner had written a paper, and then they had to deal with some criticism of the work they did, in which they were making a case for men. And so he said this: indeed, men are hit by their wives, they are injured, and some are killed. But are all men hit by women battered? He said, but are all men hit by women battered? The answer, of course, is no. Men who beat their wives, who use emotional abuse and blackmail to control their wives, and are then hit or even harmed, cannot be considered battered men. A battered man is one who is physically injured by a wife or partner and has not physically struck or psychologically provoked her. Okay, Richard J. Gillis in Domestic Violence, not an even playing field. There's a URL there, you can always check it out. Now, I have also reversed the definition to fit for women as well. So I said, to define a battered woman, replace man or men with woman or women, wives with husband, her with him in the above definition, because that is applies. The thing is, you find out that quite often when they're talking about female victims of domestic violence, they rarely ever consider the possibility that the female partner psychologically provoked the husband, who then responded by inflicting physical harm on her, violence or abuse. So you tend to find that the man just gets harassed and judged and punished for physically attacking, but when the woman physically attacks, then we're trying to make the case that, from this definition, that he psychologically provoked her. But women are more gifted in doing that than men. They are gifted in the use of the tongue and emotional manipulation. So let's be real, this definition should apply to both men and women equally. And we all know, like I said, that women are very good at using their mouths, and they can push you through the wall, so drive you up the wall and over to the other edge. So men react. Indeed, I'll end by referring to what you see on the screen now. It's a quote credited to Professor Amanda Banks. She's a professor of psychology at the University of West London. This quote was given to me when I interviewed a Nigerian psychiatrist friend of mine based in London. He had gone to attend a master's degree program, right, at the University of West London. So when she came in to run her own course program with them, during, I think he said it was the second day, he said, Amanda Banks said the following words. So I'm going to read them out to you. When you talk of abuse, the victims of abuse have been men. What you see as physical violence at home is usually a response of the person who has been pushed beyond limit. You are treating the symptoms, you are not treating the cause. All right, and just to drive this point home, if you take a look at what she said when you talk of abuse, she didn't say when you talk of violence, because what we define as violence tends to be the physical stuff we do, that we see all the time, that causes damage, the injuries and all that, the results of that. She said when you talk of abuse, so there's abuse that happens. All right, and she's saying that the victims of abuse have been men. So what you see in the physical form, so this is the manifestation of the response to abuse, is the physical violence you see from the man, and even from the woman. If the woman is psychologically provoked, like the other definition I gave you said, about the battered man, it's the same thing. The provocation happens psychologically, emotionally, verbally. You understand? And that's it. We need to keep that in mind whenever we're talking about violence and abuse and all that between the people belonging to the male and female gender. It's not restricted. It's not one that the males are the ones that are perpetually able to do it. It goes either way. It depends on the individual and the kind of upbringing they had. That's my point.